The story begins on a calm morning in Central Park, New York City, with people enjoying their morning exercises. Two women sit together, chatting happily, when suddenly one of them hears a strange sound. She asks her friend if she heard it too, but her friend seems distracted. As they both look around, they notice something disturbing. People in the park are clawing at their own bodies. One of them is shocked to see the blood, and in an instant, everyone around them stops moving, like they're frozen. She asks her friend Claire if she's seeing the same thing, but Claire, still engrossed in her book, doesn't respond. Instead, she calmly removes a chopstick-like hairpin from her hair and stabs it into her own neck. A few blocks away at a construction site, workers are chatting when, without warning, a man named Mackenzie suddenly falls to the ground. It seems as though he took his own life. The workers are horrified. They know Mackenzie, and the shock of seeing him lifeless on the ground rattles them. As they rush to help, another body falls, followed by more and more. The workers look up and see people on rooftops jumping to their deaths, fully aware of their actions. The scene then shifts to a science classroom where Elliot Moore, a teacher, is giving a lecture. He's discussing an article from the New York Times about honeybees mysteriously disappearing across the country. Elliot explains how no one knows the reason behind this strange event. The students throw out different ideas. Some blame disease, others think it's pollution or global warming. But Jake, a quiet student, offers a different theory. He suggests that the disappearance could be an act of nature, something humans just don't fully understand. Elliot agrees and praises Jake's insightful response, explaining that to be a good scientist, one must be open to forces beyond human understanding. The vice principal suddenly enters the classroom and calls Elliot to the hall. The school staff is gathered for a meeting, and the principal informs them of a possible terrorist attack in Central Park. It appears that some kind of airborne chemical toxin has been released, affecting people's minds in stages. First, people experience confusion, then physical disorientation, and finally, they are compelled to take their own lives. The school is canceled for the day. Later, Elliot talks with his friend Julian, a math teacher. Julian mentions that his mother has been calling him repeatedly, worried about the situation in the city. Julian tells Elliot that she insists they all leave for her house in Philadelphia. Elliot, who has been experiencing problems in his marriage with Alma, isn't sure what to do, but agrees to think about it. Julian suggests they all meet at the train station and head out of the city together. When Elliot calls his wife Alma to check on her, she seems distant, and he confesses that they've been having issues. Julian reassures him that he shouldn't share such personal matters with him. Alma has been receiving mysterious calls from a man named Joey, which she refuses to pick up. As the couple prepares to leave, the news reports show how the toxin is causing people to kill themselves by disrupting a specific part of the brain. Elliot and Alma head to the station, where they meet Julian and his daughter Jess. On the way there, they hear news reports confirming that the toxin found in the victims' bodies is a natural compound, not a man-made chemical. At the station, Julian receives word that his wife Yvette is stuck in traffic but will catch the next train. As they wait, Alma grows more suspicious, having overheard Julian's conversation with Elliot. She storms off in anger after discovering that Elliot told Julian about their personal issues. Alma buys a train ticket and boards the train, leaving Elliot behind. Elliot and Julian finally board the train, and they head for Philadelphia to seek safety at Julian's mother's house. Meanwhile, Jess grows more anxious, wanting to know where her mother is. Julian reassures her, but the situation only gets more tense as the group hears of attacks happening in Philadelphia and other cities. Alma, on the train, contacts Joey to tell him that their meeting will be their last. Joey warns her of another attack in Philadelphia, which further escalates the situation. As the train moves toward Philadelphia, the news reports that the toxin attacks are spreading rapidly across the country. Elliot, Alma, Julian, and Jess are all on edge as they hear of new locations being affected. The train, however, eventually ends up stranded in a small rural town called Filbert. The conductors have lost radio contact, and the passengers are left in a state of confusion and fear. Jess especially is scared because she still hasn't heard from her mother, Yvette. Julian leaves to try and find Yvette, but in his absence, Elliot comforts Jess. Meanwhile, a woman on the train shows Elliot a video on her phone of a man taunting lions at a zoo, trying to provoke them into attacking him. The video is unsettling, and the strange behavior of people in the video seems to mirror what's happening outside. The group learns through a diner newscast that the suicides and bizarre actions aren't caused by a terrorist attack, but by a natural phenomenon. The toxin, it seems, is switching off the part of the brain that prevents people from harming themselves. While waiting for Julian to return, The group is approached by a plant nursery owner, who offers them a ride. Julian, unable to reach Yvette, decides to leave and head to Princeton. He leaves Jess with Elliot and Alma, assuring them that she will be safer with them. As the nursery owner drives them to his nursery, he talks about how he's also packing up to leave. The situation is growing more dire, and no one knows where the next attack will happen. Julian arrives in Princeton only to find that the town is also affected by a strange event. He sees dozens of people hanging from trees along the road. In a desperate act, the driver of the car crashes into a tree at high speed, and Julian slashes his wrists with broken glass from the windshield, ending his life. Meanwhile, Elliot, Alma, and their group, including Jess, decide to flee towards the state line, hoping to escape the growing crisis. While traveling towards the state line, the group encounters bodies ahead, which causes them to turn back. They find more cars on a country road, all of which report similar sightings of bodies. The nursery owner tells Elliot that a woman in Princeton, where Julian had gone, is talking to her daughter. Elliot rushes to find the woman and learns that everyone in Princeton has died. The girl, who had been speaking to her mother, starts showing signs of infection, including confused speech, the first stage of the toxin's effect. Elliot, devastated by the loss of his friend Julian, sits down in sorrow. Jess finds him and comforts him. A private from the army organizes the group to abandon their cars and walk toward a small housing development that is off the grid and not on any maps except for the local ones. They hope it will be safe from the chaos, as the terrorists seem to be focusing on larger cities and roads. The group splits into two, with one smaller group of 10 to 12 people, including Elliot, Alma, and Jess, and a larger group of 20 to 25 people, including the soldier and the plant couple. As they walk through the fields, the larger group gets infected. The soldier, who begins to show signs of confusion, shouts about how he won't leave his gun behind, calling it his friend. The group hears gunshots as the soldiers, one by one, use the gun to kill themselves. Elliot, now convinced that plants are responsible for the attacks, tells everyone to split into smaller groups to avoid triggering the toxin. The group runs in different directions, each trying to outrun the wind, which seems to carry the toxin. Elliot, Alma, Jess, and two teenagers, Josh and Jared, find shelter in a show home in the new development. They experience some lighthearted moments when Elliot, speaking to a plant he believes is alive, introduces himself to it, hoping the good vibes will protect him. However, it turns out the plant is plastic. After a brief laugh at his own expense, they continue their journey. The group comes across an old, boarded-up house, where they ask for food. The inhabitants refuse, and when the two teenagers become aggressive, kicking at the door and shouting, the inhabitants shoot them dead, one through the chest and the other through the head. Elliot is horrified, and Alma and Elliot grieve for the boys, while Jess becomes traumatized by the violence. Elliot, Alma, and Jess press on and find an old house that seems abandoned, hoping to rest. An eccentric old lady lives there and refuses to speak to anyone about the outside world. She prepares supper for them and offers them a bed for the night. The next morning, the old woman tells them they must leave. As she walks into the garden, she begins walking backwards, revealing that the toxin has affected her. She bangs her head against the porch wall, breaking the window and letting in the toxic wind. Elliot runs through the house searching for Alma and Jess. He hears them but can't find them, so he heads toward the cellar, convinced they are down there. However, they are actually outside in an old stone spring house. There is a speaking tube between the spring house and the cellar, which transmits their voices clearly. Through the tube, Elliot explains that the toxin now seems to be triggered even by one person alone. Determined to not die alone, Elliot asks Alma and Jess to join him outside. They walk into the garden and hold hands, bracing for the wind. As the wind blows, nothing happens. It seems the threat has ended and they find themselves in Arundel County. 3 months pass and the group is living peacefully in Philadelphia. Alma tells Jess to not be late for her first day of school. Elliot sends Jess off, and as he watches the news, a scientist warns that the event was a red tide, a sign that the planet is rejecting humans as pests. The host suggests that this phenomenon might be happening elsewhere. Alma, in the meantime, takes a pregnancy test and finds out she's expecting. Elliot, overjoyed, embraces her, feeling hopeful for their future. In France, two men walk through a garden, discussing their evening plans. Suddenly, a distant scream is heard. One of the men starts repeating his words about a bike, sounding confused. The other man stands frozen in place, and everyone around them goes still, as if frozen by some unseen force. In French, the second man exclaims, "Oh my God." The story ends on this haunting note, leaving the audience wondering if the toxin's effects are truly over or if it is just beginning to spread further across the world. And to watch nice stories from all across the world, simply click on my recaps on the right next. Subscribe to return for future uploads, and as always, grab your popcorn, enjoy yourself, and see you soon, my friend.